Welcome to Tables with Fee. Um, I'm your regular host, and on this table, we sit and then we tell the stories of people who are making real difference in our community, often quietly, often against the odds. We talk about family values because family is very important to us. It is the third institution that God created, and it is what holds this world together. And so it's one thing that we hold dear on this round table. And we talk about importance of strong bonds and everyday choices that help families and communities grow stronger together because we can't do without it. This podcast sits at the intersection of education, support, and shared human experience, designed to inspire, inform, and connect both locally and then globally. So if you have tuned in to this session, please don't go anywhere. Sit back, relax. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, and if you make it to the end, write something at the end of the comment section and we'll get you where we'll respond to you. So today I have a very interesting personnel among on this table, and this is our first time that we are meeting him. So I'm going to ask him if someone that he doesn't know meets him on the roadside and then wanted to engage in a communication, a conversation with him, how would you describe yourself to that person? How would you want that person to know you after that conversation?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Felix Rirom. I'm a poet, novelist, and a creator of an ancestors, so a Pan African anthology that seeks to collaborate with students and international writers to write more about Africa.
Okay. Okay, so it's Felix. Today we are going to talk about arts and God.
Yes.
Um, Growing up, I remember in the olden days where we it was even on TV and then we called it by the fireside, where um, we surround a burning fire and then the oldest person among us, usually our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our granduncles, would be the one to talk to us um, in an answer formula or setting. Growing up in Ghana, how did art influence you in terms of your Christian beliefs?
So, arts has really been of great influence to me because sometimes even how creative gets the inspiration, mostly for me personally, I attribute it to God because sometimes I just them say marvel how come I'm able to create certain, especially my poems, my novels. And you see, God is the first creator, God is the first inventor, and God is the first artist. I describe God as an artist because looking at the brush strokes of the rainbow in the sky, the mellifluous birds of the birds, how are the birds able to sing? And then the humming of the sea, such melodiously. And then looking at creation itself, is such an inspiration that I derive my inspiration. Let me say, it's such let me say how that I derive my inspiration from. Yes.
Okay. So growing up for me back in SHS, in our time, I think it was SSS, we only talked about arts when it is time for relative literature.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, I didn't like it because by then you hear words like onomatopoeia and the
Yes.
rest. They were more or less like jargons. And then we were doing oral English, but it didn't make sense to me around
Yes.
that time. And so you will hear people go to SHS and they will offer courses, they will read courses like general arts or elective arts, and they are majoring in relative literature. But that's just about it. When they leave school, that is it.
Yes.
What is the difference between the people that understand creation, that understand the environment, the literature that surrounds them, and the people that sit in the class and they are taught and they only learn it just for examination sake.
For me personally, I feel like art itself is an inbuilt something. So it doesn't, let me say, I don't know, let me say, it doesn't let me say, it doesn't matter the background you're coming from. Being an art student, being a science student, being a home economics student, it's something that's inherent in mankind. So someone can let me say, let me say, a very good musician, but the person has not done any course on music. An example is Michael Jackson, and then I think we have Rihanna, and let me say prominent people that have actually made it in the music industry. Not necessarily going to the university to learn musicology, but it's an inherent something that God created as part of mankind. So for me, if someone is going to say that arts is only, let me say, made for art students, I don't think that's necessarily make the sense, because even those that are not art students are even making it in the music industry, in painters making it in the arts industry, poets who have not been to school. I think William Shakespeare did not sit in, let me say, I think at the age of 14 he had stopped education, but now he is one of the prominent figures that are actually being taught in the university. Most of let me say his plays, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, are being done in, let me say, international theaters. But looking at the background of William Shakespeare, he wasn't someone who actually sat in class for a very long time to be taught art, but he was someone that has actually led a legacy that I think 1516, that's when he died. But even up to now, people still learn about William Shakespeare.
So then, what is act in Christianity? Because we often hear now we are very much aware that an artist is somebody that creates a
Yes.
form of entertainment,
Yes.
and so that is all that we know. In recent times, we've come to understand and know and agree that people, painters,
Yes.
are also artists because they design with their work. How is art infused in Christianity?
So art is infused in Christianity. I think most of us watch Jesus movies, and these
Exactly.
are actually let me say movie scripts that are given to people to act. And then I think where Christianity started itself in Acts chapter is 11 verse 26 in Athens. Athens itself is like it's a country or a place that art is being let me say art is being performed a lot. I think they even have a festival that's called Dionysus that's celebrated in remembrance of Dionysus, who is a Greek god. And during that time, art is being performed. But when you're talking about Christianity, music, even Lucifer, that we all know as the devil, the bright morning star, was one of the best musicians that was recounted in the Bible. Talking of David, David was one of the prominent musicians that let me say, recounted in the Bible. I think we even have Tubal-Cain. He was the one that invented a lie. So music, poetry, stage performance or stage drama, it's something that is also infused in Christianity. Like I said, most of us had believe or faith in Jesus Christ, watching Jesus Christ movie. Especially, I don't know if you watched this movie before. Is it Passion of Jesus Christ?
Yes.
Where you can even watch Jesus Christ movie and then some people will be shedding tears because of how Jesus Christ went into such excruciating pain, especially when he was taken to the crucifixion cross. Yes.
When I was growing up, I'm not that old, but I remember when I was growing up, you watch gospel, not just gospel, but this secular music. Would they would produce video clips, and the video clips would tell a story.
Yes.
I remember Florence Obi in and then
Yes.
she would go to the cemetery and all those things. Recently, lately, music videos are full of nudity.
Yes.
There's no story.
Okay.
And So, what happened? You hear gospel songs, and they are very, I mean, they are telling real stories. Sometimes you can align these stories to yourself, or you realize that you can relate to this story very well. And then you watch the gospel music and the kind of dance that are being shown in the clip. Today we are talking about arts and
And God,
God, and then how arts influence
yes.
Christianity. Don't you think there is a negative aspect of this artistry that is being influenced in the Christianity compared to the old times where artists would tell a story with their music clip, or even the gospel musicians themselves would tell a story with their dressing style?
I think, honestly, looking at art these days, most let me say artists are more interested in the money making than
Okay.
the morality aspect of it. Because I, as an artist myself, I always ask myself that what kind of legacy do I want to leave when I'm no more? Because I know eventually one day I'll die. I don't argue on that fact. But when I'm no more, when I'm not on the surface of the earth, what are people actually going to remember me for? But we mostly put money in front of us than our let me say morality aspect. This is because I'll tell you the truth that negativity sells more than
More than
positivity.
the okay.
Yes, negativity sells more than positivity. So let's make a scenario. Right now, if you are going on social media and then you've seen let me say painting or a video, which let me say two couples are making love or kissing, and then you've seen one video that's actually let me say, someone just giving dashing money to someone. People will prefer to watch the negative one first than even rushing to
Okay.
the positive one. So
So would
most
you say that
people,
we are drawn to negativity more than the positive side of
I
it?
wouldn't say, but you see, there was a time where I did classics and philosophy in UCC, University of Cape Coast. There
Okay.
was a time where we were having a lecture, and then our lecturer started with a profane song. So when the lecturer started with the profane song, I realized that most people that were actually going to lectures had now come to our lecture theater to watch what was actually happening in the classroom. So will you let me say, if I'm making such a scenario, will you tell me that if the lecturer was saying something positive, will have people peep into the classroom? No. People are much drawn to negative things than positive things. So do they tell you that rumor sells faster than something that is truth? So people
So
are much
so
interested in the money making aspect.
so please help me with this one. Let's first identify what arts is and the kind of arts that we have in Ghana, because I know of culture, and
Yes.
I know in our culture we have arts in it. I mean, we are in January 2026 now, and then recently, just last month, where we were celebrating Christmas, we have these fancy dresses that
Yes.
I know it is art because I also happen to have taught in a music school, a
Mm.
natural music school before. So these are things that we used to do and that we used
Mm.
to teach them. What are some of the arts or what qualify as an art and artistry in Ghana
Mhm.
so that we can differentiate them from the ones that have influence in Christianity and then later on find out whether they are making good influence or they are making negative influence on our Christianity.
Okay. So before the introduction of, or before the arrival of the Europeans, Africa, or the our continent, that's the African continent as a whole, had let me say a history in art, or let me say the Gold Coast had their own literature.
Okay.
So our literature was mostly told orally. There was nothing like written literature. Ours was mostly the folklores, anantism, even lullaby, baby dear, person. All those were classified as literature. We had
Okay.
songs that were being performed during festival. Even the costumes that people wear during the traditional festivals. An example is this Ogbechucho has a lot of
Yeah.
stories that tell, let me say, that is being spoken about the Ewes, even the movement of their dance. And even dance itself is a language. Dance
Yeah.
itself is a language. Songs, they arrange them. That means words that are woven. And then literature in itself is very general, it's very broad because, like I said, we have folklores, we have legends, and legends. Some example, we have about Asiebu Amenfi. We also have about Toby Chali, and then people that have actually made history in the African continent.
Okay. So then, how do we differentiate what culture is, and then art in this that you've mentioned? Because I know I am a fancy.
Yes.
We do celebrate our Kwambo,
Mm.
and during this time, we do have these fancy dresses too
Yes.
that we do. And then these are the times where people put mascara and they decorate their face
Yes.
in different way. And all the time, each and every one of the design on every person's face actually is telling a story.
So
So
yes.
sometimes you'll be very far away and then you see somebody coming and you'll be like, okay, so this is Odumfo,
Yes.
this is Ochami, this is
Yes.
person. Even when the family gathers, this is where you see the stuff that they are holding and it has a whole meaning behind it.
Yes.
Before we sat on this table, I had understood it to be culture,
Yes.
nothing about arts.
Yes.
Now we are discussing that these are arts.
Yes.
What really is the difference between culture and art?
So I think arts and culture is intertwined. Arts and culture is intertwined because looking at the definition of literature, literature is the mirror of the society, the projection of the society, the way of life that a particular group of people live. So even the way they talk, see, I think I have friends in South Africa that even them say in their tonations, so when they say yo, it means the person is surprised. And even mewo, there are certain, let me say in our literature class, when someone says mewo or those kind of words, they are termed as what onomatopoe, the sound that the person is what making. These so, and I don't know how to put it, but arts and literature or arts and then culture goes side by side. You can't differentiate one from the other, and you can't take one from the other. I
Okay.
don't know if you get it. Let me say
Yes, for
the
that
definition I'm coming
I
from. Yes,
understand you. I understand you well. So take us through this journey. You write, you create or you write your own poems,
yes.
and then your poems are I've listened to one and they are very deep.
Mm.
What is the motivation behind? And looking at the kind of country we find ourselves in, it is only recently that you hear people organize programs and they invite people to come and then read poetry. Other than that, there aren't many events where people are
Sure.
invited to go and then recite poetries.
Mm.
And often when you see them, it's a small child that is doing it, reciting the poetry. What's the motivation for you? Why take up this?
So I think how this whole started, let me say this thing started was through my childhood days when I met with my friends and then we sit down and then have this play, Mommy and Papa. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
Oh, that
Mommy and
I
Papa.
know very well.
So
Yes.
Mommy and Papa was where I actually had the interest of I wouldn't say writing because back then I was creating stories, even though I wasn't having that deep knowledge about what stage drama was. I could name some, arrange with my friends. I'll be the fetish priest. This will be the police. This will be the arm robber. And in that setting, I'm sure we created something like a stage drama, or we performed something like an art. Art, like I said initially, is inherent in man. So I think my first poetry came in this. I went, my mom sent me somewhere to fetch water. So when I was coming on the way, I had an inspiration. that came into my mind to write a poem. So it was then that I started. 2017 was when I started writing poetry. And then it has been part of me, even though people are not interested in poetry, but I have some kind of connection with it. Like I feel like when I write, my soul feels at ease, and because art itself is like a calling. Yes, so if it's not given to you, you don't find that interest. But I think one thing that we have lost as an Africa continent, or have lost as a people, or most Ghanaians have lost, is that art was part of us even before the arrival of the Europeans.
Okay.
So when, let me say, under the moonlight setting, when families have gathered, they tell the Anansi story, they tell our history, they tell us our culture, and it's something that has been passed on from one generation to the other. If not for that fact, we will have lost our history as a country. So the something that was passed initially, let me say, in the olden days at our village, when the moon has appeared in the sky and the stars were bright in the skies, like just like the movie theater, our forefathers or our grandparents tell us who we are as Africans, where our roots came from. But I feel like these days most people are much interested in a foreign culture. That's why most debes you didn't see a lot of debes that poetry are being performed. But it's something that's part of us, and it's something that we can't deny. Even in our way of life, our dressing, our painting, let me say certain things that the language says during a grand deba. All these are classified as arts.
So would you say that we have lost our identity as a people?
Yes, in one way or the other, I feel like we have lost our identity. There was this writer, poet, name is a novelist who died in last year, I think 2025, called Wationgo Ngoge. Wationgo Ngoge was a Kenyan writer, and then I think there was one time where he was in prison just because he was writing against the Europeans. So he has to even write on the tea roll, a story or a poem on the tea roll for it to be published. He was telling us to what be interested more in our mother tongue than the tongue of the European. I don't know if you've read of this. You've read this book before. Things Fall Apart. Things
Yes.
Fall Apart is simply a struggle between the whites and then the blacks, the Europeans or the colonizers, and then the indigenous people. We have Africans, like we've thrown away our intestines and then we've taken a foreign one. Even in our way of life, the language that we are speaking currently, it should have been a local dialect. But most people, even training up their child, they don't pass that language, or they don't pass the indigenous language in the child for the child to speak it. And I think looking at the European wars, looking at China, there's the Asian country. Most of them, it's very difficult for you to see a Chinese speaking English with his own people. Like let me say, in a family setting. The whites also do the same. I think Russians have their own language that they speak when they meet. So why can't we as a country also adopt this? And then, like I said, there was a time where I put a carry around my neck. I
Okay.
went to church, and then lucky for me, no one saw it. But when I came outside from the church, one man saw it, like, I should move that fetish thing from my neck. But you know one interesting thing about the carry? The carry in Akan language is called Sidie, and it's what has been termed as well the cities. So if Sidie is something that is fetish, then cities or the money that we are spending as a country is what? Fetish.
So the problem is that you just narrated Chinese people speak Chinese people. They speak Chinese
Indigenous
among the
language,
family.
yes.
You and I, we are speaking
English,
English,
yes.
which is our second
Speaking
language.
language.
So how do we grow up from this? Because it seems like we are always apportioning blames and we are always finding fault.
Yes.
But then the thing is that we are repeating the very mistakes
See,
and the very things that keep us away from our own culture.
yes.
And then we go to school and we are being beaten. Well, I don't
Yes.
know about now because I know about the human rights and the rest. But during my time, you go to school and then you speak vernacular, your own language, and then you get beaten
Yes.
for it. So then my mind is trained and tuned that My own language is no good, it's
Yes,
not
yes.
perfect. So I should learn another person's language.
Language.
And that means I'm going to lose my own language.
Yes.
So then, who is at fault here? And what do we do next to bring back our own language?
So currently, I'm working on a Pan African anthology, which is more about projecting Africa. And then, aside that project I'm doing, these days, I'm also writing more about our country, the history. So there's a book that I'm writing called, the title is, I think, The Three Princesses Who Sat on a Lion. So that
Okay.
story actually talks about the Fantis, the history of the Fantis, some legends we've lost. Talking about legends are people that have actually led heroic life in our society, or name say in the history of Africa. So these are stories that I'm still projecting, and I feel like a lot of people resonate with it more than stories outside, because these are different. If let me say I've written a story about snow. Have you experienced snow before? But projecting African settings, we as Africans, especially the Christmas setting, where a lot of families will be at their homes. I know definitely we are going to chill
But
akoko. Yes.
I have to bring in this. We are in a country that our own history is not even written, and when it
Yes.
is written, it is not studied in our own institution.
Mm.
We, I mean, I went to school. I did general arts, and I read about Gettysburg and the rest.
Mm.
People that came to colonize me and my forefathers. And up to now, these are the people we are studying about.
Yes.
Dr. Kwame Nkrumah has written books and it was banned, but still, it could have been reproduced. And
Mm.
we are still not getting a copy of it. We have a lot of people, indigenous people, Ghanaian people who have written books, and it is difficult to find copies of it, let alone to be taught in school.
Mm.
I read The Gods Are Not to Blame,
Mm.
Ola Rutimi.
Yes.
In as much as Ola Rutimi was a Nigerian and an African, I don't know, but it was paired with Kechi Akosobo or Kechi something something. Um, I've forgotten the title, but I know the author has Kechi Akosobo something in the name. But in as much as, and then let me bring it back to the same arts and artistry.
Mm.
This is Ghana. Just few weeks ago, we had Dirty December and we had Ben, we had Asake. I mean, we've had a lot of Nigerian artists come and perform. We had P Square come who came to perform on Stoneboy's Beam Festival. And none of these Ghanaian artists, top Ghanaian artists, have gone to perform in Nigeria. So is it the case that Ghana doesn't appreciate, it's not even able to identify its own geniuses to celebrate them? Or is it that the case that we have been so much brainwashed that we can never want to have anything that has been done by our own people? Because I'm trying to say that everything that, even if everything that Ghanaians love and like are made by other
Mhm.
people from other countries, and if it is in Africa, it is not even from Ghana. What is our problem? And what is the solution to this?
So I think our problem is we, let me say, have lost taste for our own local things. Even talking about food, we are more interested in fast food than all local food. I think these days it's very difficult for you to go to occasions and be served with kokunte and abenkwan. It's
Okay.
more difficult for you to go to occasions and then be served with tujimi. Who eats tujimi these days? But we are all interested in the perfume rice, yasmin, long grains, and then golden fried rice and chicken than our own local foods, abetia and those kind of things, eto and those kind of impotompoto. It's even termed as well dirty food. But I think the only solution to this is you and I. If we should set a pace, I'm sure the more we are talking about this, a lot of people also have the interest to visit their route because most people have the interest to do certain things, but they always want someone to what, pave the way for them. And I'm sure if someone is supposed, in them says to pave the way, a lot of people also follow suit as well.
Okay, so who are the people that are supposed to pave the way?
That's
Because
what I say.
we really need to identify these people and then start attacking them,
Yes.
putting pressure on them to.
Yes.
Because I mean, I'm sick and tired of people apportioning blames.
Yes.
And often it's easier to apportion blame than it is to recognize that you are partly to be blamed and then you have to bring up a solution. But I don't know. I don't know. We seem to have an issue, and so then I've seen you creating content, creating videos.
Yes.
How do we use content creation as a way of evangelism
Mm.
to retell our own story, to tell the story in the African, the Ghanaian way,
Yes.
to ensure that our history is never lost, and to ensure that, number two, we understand who you are. Because if you don't know your history, you are lost. We have this saying, proverb in account that unim ukrom kind of say mikram yo. If you don't know the talking drum of your where you come from, you get lost
Yes.
at a deba because the drumming. I remember in primary school there was this person. I don't know the name. I because I was never part of the drummers by then. But every term there was a person that was working with Ghana Education Service, and then this person will come and teach people how to drum for break time because you have to play the drum in a way that it would talk to the student, to the teachers, and then the teachers will know. So the kind of drumming, the way the rhythm, the percussion goes, that would tell the teacher it is change lesson or it is break time or it is closing time. Even the break time, we go to break twice in the school day. So the kind of drumming tells you this is first break, this is second break, this is change lesson. So if you are done here, you need to go somewhere else so that another person comes in and takes over from that class. And it was only one person, and there would be times that this person would those were the times that I wanted to go and learn. And then we would be told that the person is sick or the person has traveled or they are going to do some program elsewhere, and so they couldn't come in. I'd be like, damn, can they bring another person? Today, all of these things are lost. And people are installing sirens. I'm not saying it is bad.
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't say this, but it's like these are culture. These are things that identified who we are. And as we are having this conversation, I am remembering these things, and they are all gone because I don't know which school. You go to schools and they are using sirens. So how do we use content creation? Because that's what you are doing. This is your field. How do we use content creation to bring back our identity, to preserve our identity?
So, like we are talking about schools, I think there have been schools that have even introduced British curricula in their system. So it's still it's like we are no more interested
We
in
are,
in our culture yet. But
sometimes I wonder if we are still enslaved or and we are pretending like we have our freedom, or we know we are still living in slavery,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is.
So I think, like I said, it starts with you and I. So there's this story that I'm writing, and I think I've paused for a while because there are histories I still need so that it will be accurate. It's historical fiction. So with historical fiction, you have to make sure that whatever history you are bringing on board or you are writing infused in the novel, it's actually accurate. This story talks, like I told you earlier, is the three princes who ride on a lion, and then it's talking about the Fantis. So I have this picture of a woman, I think the queen mother, and then her daughter. The queen mother is called Esi Janwa, and then the daughter is called Abaduma. So we're sitting in the car and then we're playing the song Ama Bonswe Miwa na Menum Sama so
Yeah.
so it's even written in let me say in a novel that I've written. And then there's a picture of a woman sitting on a Bedford truck. So the Bedford truck is the arrow grass that our parents used to call those time, where some of the women were seated at the back of the Bedford truck going to Mankesim to sell periwinkle snails. I don't even know periwinkle snails. Periwinkle snails are known in our local dialects as apofe. So we're going to sell periwinkle snails. Some of them are going to sell tomatoes, crabs, and those things. And then there was a part where a man came from Accra. So it's written in my own town called Ekumfi. I think I think on the Mankisim Cape Coast stretch.
Yeah.
So the man came from Accra, known as Nkran. So when he came with a white woman where they were wearing jewels made with pearls, and then the man was throwing some currencies, and we're dancing the local song. So the local song was the song that we were dancing in the background, talking of certain things that during those old times our people were doing. So some of them were playing this old gramophone. Yes, inserting the disc in it and then to be rotating. Some of them were also drinking the palm wine, seated under the palm tree where someone was playing a guitar. So it's a kind of story that projects the olden way. I think it's the setting is in the 1950s. That's the projection of the story. But how can we bring back our let me say the interest for our own arts or our own history or our own culture being performed these days is, like I said, it starts with you and I. If we should talk about it, a lot of people will have that kind of interest. If I think there should be a time, or there's a plan on, let me say, there's a project I'm working on where after the writing of my anthology, if it's being published, we are going to work with schools where I think there's going to be a 1 week. We are going to wear our cloth. That time, we're not going to wear anything like things that are made by Europeans. We are going to remove all this attire, put on clothes. We are going to do the body painting. We are going to wear these beads, the traditional beads, and then sit by the fireside to tell stories. The story shouldn't be mainly about Asante Kingdom, where we talk about Saiditu and Co. But it should be in a way where we also talk about Toby Charlie. It should be also be in a way where we talk about the Nzemes culture coming in. It should also be in a way where we talk about Numo, Atana Numo, the Gan culture being introduced in. It should also be in a way where the Northerners also have a connection to it. So in all the 16 regions, everyone is going to feel like they belong here. So that's it. As I said, it starts with you and I. And even coming back to Christianity, art has a way of bringing people closer to God or bringing people closer to their roots. If it's being done telling the story of the people, it's being done relating to what the person is experiencing. Because if it has nothing to do with our experience, there's no way I'm going to relate to it. I don't know if you get
I,
what I'm trying to project.
I
Yes.
get you. But then here's this problem that I am trying to wrap my head around it. About the CDA that you had in
Around
your
my neck.
around your neck, and then um, you know, I would say lack of communication misunderstanding.
Yes.
This church member thinks you have fetches something.
Mm.
And that's because we seem to have associated it to. I've seen movies. I have not seen um, any fetish priest wearing it. Probably because I have not seen fetish priest physically, but I have seen it in movies,
Yes.
in graphics, in newspapers. So then there is this spiritual sensitiveness, and some Ghanaians fear this kind of act because of uh, either ancestral or spiritual associations or fear that has been attached to it. Like we, I can't drama cantata,
Yes.
and then whenever a fetish priest comes, there's a CD.
Yeah.
I remember when they enacted "The Gods Are Not to
Yeah.
Blame" and what is this movie? This book, this sketch is something something. I mean, we read it
Yeah.
alongside Ola Ritimi's "The Gods Are Not to
Yeah.
Blame," and these are the style of dressing. So it has indoctrinated us that anybody wearing CDA is kind of like a spiritually bad person, or
Yes.
most of the time. And so I am not surprised that you wore and then your church member says remove it because it is fetish priest. How valid do you think is this fear that we have for art in Christianity?
So I think we are now talking about Christian and then the traditional aspect, or are you moving in the Christian?
We are not moving, but I'm talking about this is in art form.
Oh, okay.
You are talking about visiting schools and then people wearing their, being in their cultural,
Attire, yes.
yes, cultural regalia. And I'm trying to find out how this is going to play because, Evers have their cultural dresses.
Yes.
In Zumas, they have their cultural
Cultural
dresses.
dresses.
Asantes have their cultural
Cultural
dresses.
dresses.
Akans, they all do. And some, mostly, the cultural dresses, as it has been portrayed, are very much opposite to our Christian beliefs.
Yes, yes.
So, how do you make people understand that there is no fear to have when you are portraying your cultural regalia, and that it doesn't make you a fetish person, it doesn't make you an idol worshiper, but this is your identity, this is who you are, this is the culture you were born into, this is what your parents, your foreparents have been born into.
Yes. So I think even Jesus Christ himself was born in the religion of the Jewish.
Yes,
Um, no, let me say it doesn't matter you're a Christian, doesn't matter you're an Islamic, you are you have a root somewhere.
exactly.
And then I feel like Christianity does not talk anything against our background, doesn't talk anything against our ethnicity. There was a time where Paul in the Bible, I think it's Acts chapter I think 12 or 10 so, where he had a dream or he had a trance of certain animals that came for him to eat. And then Paul said, I will not kill and eat. I will not kill and eat. I think it came to him in, let me say, three times. Paul told, or said in that dream that, in that trance, that he's never going to eat any of those things because they are unclean.
Yeah.
And it was at that same time where the people were under the roof telling him to have an encounter with Cornelius. And even Paul in the Bible, when Paul had come back from Cornelius, the disciples were judging him, all because he had had an encounter with someone who is what? A Gentile. So in these days, we have idolized our culture. That's the reason why most Christians see our culture as evil. But in actual sense, our culture, if you let's go of our culture right now, we've lost our identity as a people. We've lost our identity as Africans. Then who are we? Who are we? Or how do we call ourselves now? If we should deny the fact that we have nothing to do with our culture, we have nothing to do with our background. At least I know that people that have lost their history or have lost their culture are lost people. They have no direction anywhere. And I feel like our culture in a way also shapes our Christian life. This is because I mostly tell people that why do Christians even these days pray a lot, especially when it's coming to this during a Christmas period or during the end of the year. We have the belief that even in the Bible, it's also stated that we are principalities that we are fighting against. So we should let go of this idea of our identity or these witches, crowds, and those things that we say they are evil, or let me say certain things that are our culture and they are evil. How do we really have strong faith in God, or how do we identify our people as African? How do we identify ourselves? That's the question I also have to ask, because in all these ways we still need our culture to be known as a people.
So, at what point do we realize that we are on the wrong path and we need to make a turn, or we need to get returned, like get back from to have a reset to, because it will be difficult recently, if I'm being honest from my observation. It's going to be difficult for someone to kind of, it might not be difficult, but like I said, we are all going to school. I have two kids, and I want my two
Yeah,
kids to be speaking good English.
yeah,
And most of the things that they are being taught, I mean, we even in our own account language that we teach in schools, these things are not in it. But then um, these Christians, CRS, Christian religious studies,
yeah.
and all those things, and they are teaching us to reject our culture.
Sure.
So how do we even?
So this is we have two things on the table. We have idol worship and we have culture. We have African traditional religion, and then we have arts. So the African traditional religion and then our culture is two different things. The reason why I'm saying it's two different things is that talking of even a herbalist, herbalists are not evil people. Odunsini or someone who performs with herbs are not people who are evil. But it's how our society have seen them or have noticed. These days we feel like all these things are archaic. There was a time that I was actually talking or championing this Brago right, because I feel like the Brago right is a kind of right that is very good and is very relevant in our modern society if it should be practiced. Let's remove the aspect of the idol worshiping that or the traditional setting that we are talking of. We can rebrand it in our own Christian life, because these days, talking of teenage pregnancy, it has become very rampant.
Yeah.
Talking of sexual immorality has become something that's very rampant in our society. But in those days, if someone should have premarital sex, you know that that person will be what? Will be banished from the society, and it's forever. So the person does not have the, let me say, the person will be sent to the evil forest, and we know that that place is very dangerous. That if you should go there, you will never return back alive. So it was something that was keeping the people in check. And then talking of making our environment sacred. So there were certain places that were termed as sacred. And in these places, we do not go there for fishing. These places, you do not go there for hunting. So it's made us what reserve what our natural resources. So I think it's very difficult for those days people to practice what illegal mining. It was things that were keeping the people in check. There were times, there was a taboo for a person to go to farm on certain days, not because our people were foolish, but it helped to preserve our natural resources. There was a time people were not supposed to go for fishing. It was helping us to keep our aquatic animals in check. So, like, if we should, I feel like if we should debate, or if we should get let go of our culture, it will also end up one day eating us at our back. I think it's because of we rejecting or getting rid of our culture. That's the reason why people are even having the confidence to practice illegal mining without any fear. Because in those days, it was very difficult for you to go to an evil forest where you know that these places are is inhabited with ghosts, for you to go there and practice illegal mining. I don't know if you know what will happen to you there.
I
You will
really
die
understand.
instantly.
Yeah.
You will not survive. And then certain way of dressing, where in our culture you know that a woman has to dress decently, and that word architasia means that a person has to dress very decently. But in these days, how do we see people? It's all because in the name of Christianity you believe that, oh, Christ died for us, and then if I sin, at least I'm not going to die. But in those days, if you die instantly, you will die. You will face your reward that instantly. So people were living in moral life in such a way. It's very difficult. Even these days, there are some villages that you go there, you can leave your phone somewhere, and then people will pass by and will never steal it. But even in the churches, should you leave your phone, or your phone should be in your pocket? Someone will even want to steal your phone that has not been placed on the table. So, like I said, we can't get rid of our culture in a way. I feel like as Christians, even though sometimes we have to know, even though if we do not practice them, it has to be something that would be in archive in our memory, something that we can pass on to our children to serve as a morality standard to them, so that we know that, oh, at least some example is the Anansi stories. The Anansi stories, even though they sometimes made us to laugh, a lot of them were telling stories.
Yeah.
So the Anansi story will tell you not to be greedy. Anansi story will tell you not to be a thief. The Anansi story will tell you not to do certain things that the society would refrain from. But I think these days everyone is living their life on their own. Our life is not being judged by society standard, because we feel like, oh, at least Jesus Christ has died for us, and then we are entitled to do whatever we want. But I think religion has to, our culture has to be something that is also guide us in a way. But the very moment that we return to idol worshiping, that we have to pour libation to these objects, we have to bow down to them, we have to say certain things like incantations and those things. I think that is the moment that we are deviating from God's let me say roots or realms rules or standards. But if you should be practiced, like I said, the bravo like this, it's something that can be still bring back to the church to set as a caution, because you know that once the person does this, there is the punishment for the person. But this is like, oh, at least no one will will punish me for that. And these days, teenage pregnancy is happening very rapidly. Some of the stories, if you hear them, is very sorrowful. Yeah, because some of the church members, the church elders, will lie down. Some of them lie down with their own daughters, and this. But in those days, you can't do those things.
So you think we need to go back
Yes, for me, I think we have to go back as a people.
as a people? So as a people, we have to go back to our roots, like he has explained vividly. There were so many things that it was taboo to even mention. I remember back in the days when I was very small, and you could not mention some words. You mention those words. Any elderly person that is around will cane you,
True.
take you to your mother's home, and then report to your mother what you have done, why he has caned you. And the worst thing is that after that is that the person will stay while your mother beats you to ensure that your mother doesn't condone what you did. And these days, parents are ushering their daughters and sons into doing the very things that were taboo back in the days. Mr. Felix,
Yes.
before we wrap up, is art worldliness or it is our culture? And why should every youth get involved in restoring our identity through art?
So art, I don't know if when you're saying weirdness, that means evil. Art
Exactly.
itself is
In
not.
general, when you put everything together,
Yes.
because a lot of the arts, like we have mentioned before, even the very gospel music these days, or the very gospel artists themselves, because I think it's two things that happens within the arts itself or the arts industry. The person performing the arts and the acts the person is performing.
Mhm.
So it's either the acts that the person is performing that would influence me, or the person performing the act that would influence me. And from my experience recently, lately, I think a lot of these people that we look up to back in the days that were supposed to influence us positively by themselves, by what they are doing recently, are rather, you know what I mean.
Yes.
So then, when you are with an old person, when you are with somebody who is strict, and you want to, someone is influencing you. It could be a gospel musician, but say a gospel musician, you like this gospel musician, you would want to become like him or
Yeah.
her, and you would want to walk in their steps and trace. But then the very moment you start, your parents will be on your neck. Never, because either the song itself or the word, the artistry or the artists themselves. And they'll tell you all these things. It's worldliness. There's nothing in it. I mean, this is not how you are being brought up
Yes.
or how we brought you up. So then I'm basing on that to ask if acts recently of late is worldliness.
So there was a song. I think there's a radio song that says that listen to the message, but not the messenger. So art,
And we can never do that.
so
It
art,
doesn't really work.
art itself is not evil. Looking at the Bible itself, it's full of poetry. I'm talking of Job. I'm talking of Psalms. Talking of Ecclesiastes, written by Solomon. It's full of poetry. So you know that God Himself is an artist. Like I said initially, because of the way He created the world, how the Earth hung in space with the planets moving around the orbit. God is such a magnificent artist that you can never comprehend how He's able to do all these things. So I think Michael Jackson, and then we have Leonardo da Vinci, and then I think Van Gogh. So these people, I think Michael Jackson is a musician, and then
Leonardo is a painter.
is a painter. He is the one that painted Mona Lisa. You see, all these people will tell you that they derive their inspiration from God. God is the one that gifted them that kind of voice, Michael Jackson, the voice was to sing. There's a kind of voice that when you hear that voice singing, it's able to touch your soul for you to repent from whatever evil you are doing, or the message will actually hit your heart. There's a time that even though I wasn't born in the 90s, that I'm not that old, but there are some Michael Jackson videos that I watched that when he stood on stage, his posture and everything. made people to cry. Is
Yeah.
even when she opened his mouth to say, hey, people were let
They're
me say
falling
were
down.
collapsing, were
Yeah.
falling
Yeah.
down. That show you that art goes beyond art itself. Art, art itself has a kind of what spiritual connection, like we were saying earlier. It has some kind of spiritual connection because imagine I, a painter, with a blank
Canvas.
canvas, and then I took black paints and then splashed it on the board. Maybe initially I didn't know what I was doing, but it will end up coming out what as a very beautiful. Even in the initial stage, you may think that I'm doing something that's not really nice or something that what is this guy actually doing? But at the end of everything, you see that the painter will come out very something that's very colorful, something that is very mesmerized to the eyes. God in Himself is an artist. So He gifted us that kind of gift for us to exhibit it on this earth. So art in itself is not evil. But you see, when we come to African setting, like I said, we have projected art to be something in a way that I also say that it's difficult performing art in Africa because initially a lot of people are not interested in art. Talking of poetry in itself, I think most arts that people are much interested is music. And even in the music, most people are still interested in the foreign music compared to our own music. There was a time that we were making a comparison with Sarkodie, and then this guy from South Africa, I forgot his name.
Is it nasty
Yeah,
or
Nasty C, yeah, Nasty C. That people were making a comparison with him. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. And then, like I said, in African set, it's difficult to follow your passion because at the initial stage, it's very difficult that it doesn't pay. That's the truth of the matter.
so?
At the initial stage,
Let me
yes.
interrupt you. How has your journey been like
So
personally?
honestly, my journey hasn't been that smooth. I'll always tell you the truth that you see, you say we have something I can't say. You say the was so good and no. I don't know how to put it or I don't know how to let you to understand. But you see, what I would say is that at the initial stage, if you should be performing, when I started, my parents didn't really buy the idea of me being a writer, being a novelist, or being a poet. But one thing I always say is that when they saw that things were actually going well in the direction of art, now I saw that they now came back and then they appreciated. I thought there was a time that I was at CTFM in Accra. When I came home, my dad was so happy that so far whatever I'm doing is actually going somewhere. But initial stage, it's very difficult, especially when you've taken your child to the university or you've
You
spent a
spend
lot of
some.
money on your child, and then the child has
Yes.
now come home and tell you that, Daddy,
I'm going to be
I want to
doing
be a
talking and
musician.
everything.
Or even sometimes do not tell you that I want to be a musician. You want to be a dancer.
Yes, 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 yes.
How will you accept this as a parent? But I feel that at the initial stage, like I said, it's very difficult. It's not only in African setting, even in the diaspora, elsewhere, it's difficult for people to start with it. And sometimes when you get the support, it's easy. Like we all know of Black Sherry when it started, it wasn't that smooth. But when he had a good team or people supporting him or people buying into his music, now he's recognized as a global icon. And there's someone who has also done this for about 15 years. This music, same music thing. The person has done it for 15 years and the person is still an underground artist. And then let me say this person is your grandfather. This person is your uncle, and then you as a child has also waking up one day and say, "Oh, uncle, I have this gift of
Passion you
singing.
want to
I want
follow.
to sing."
Definitely, I mean, the family.
Definitely, they'll tell you to quit. And then we have Africans have this mindset that every artist who is making it globally or anyone who is a superstar, a rock star, has actually gone somewhere or bypass somewhere to take medicine or to take in some charms to make their voice melodiously or to catch people's soul or like we all have this kind of negative mindset for artists. That's why a lot of people don't actually advise their children to pass that direction. But being an artist is very good. You sometimes feel fulfilled because it's like people are having impacts in your music. I think Michael Jackson died a long time ago. After Michael Jackson, I think I saw some videos when he was alive. Let me talk of Bob Marley because I didn't meet Bob Marley, but Bob Marley sang, I think, and up to now, Bob Marley song still makes
It's
impact.
being played, yeah.
There are
It
lots of
makes impact.
people, even in a local setting, that have actually sung songs long ago. Some of them have 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, and they still make impact
Yeah.
in our lives. You listen to them and you feel like this song, it's relating to whatever
Yeah.
I'm going
Dr.
through.
Pabobo and the
Yes,
rest.
those people have actually led, and even though they've died, that's one beautiful thing about art. You can be a painter, you paint, you will die, but your painting will still what live on. I made mention of Wationgo Ngoge. Wationgo Ngoge has died, but about 10,000 years ago, a lot of people will still have felt his impact. William Shakespeare, I think a lot of us, let me make an
Yeah,
example. This
definitely.
generation, none of us met William Shakespeare, but it still has some great impact in our lives. We still have some kind of what connection to him. That's one beautiful thing about art, comparing it to other industries, because you can be a driver and then when you are dead, no one will remember you for whatever impact you did. Maybe in your society, the way you were good with people, that's when they will remember you. But being an artist, that I'm talking of a good artist, not our artists that are actually more focused on money making. Because if you focus on money
I get you on
making,
that.
talking of the nudity, some of them even talk about drugs, sexual violence. There are songs that talks about sex. In this context, even those days, there were people. I think there was this AB Crento who sang a song. Moses say, "Mama Badu for Buma Mopande." This song is a song that actually talks about sexual stuff, but the way he
He
framed his word,
crafted
he
it so.
crafted it.
Yeah.
If you're not someone who thinks in that way or that direction, you never notice he was talking about anything related to sexual.
Unless it's only
Yes,
the goodness that
yes.
matters. Yeah.
I think there was even a time where even Mary said Moses is a small child, and Moses has gone to. I think Moses Abufraba, small child. You see, this are kind of in a literary context we call it euphemism, where unpleasant word has been used with what pleasant word. But in this way, in these days, we just go. If it's sorry to say F word, the person will just mention it like that without even adding any sorry to say any word pleasant word to it. So if you should go in that direction, I think once you leave the surface of this earth, your words also go with you. But if you should be a good artist who has this mentality of leaving a legacy, making impact in people's life, you will die and your works will still live on.
Okay. You die and your words will still live on. So this brings us to the end of this conversation, and I want to thank you for spending this much time with us. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and until the next episode, it's been a pleasure. This is Tables with Fee.